Greetings, my guildlings, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Help for the Guildless. I am Cole Spire, and I am here to bring about some joyous news. Okay, maybe not joyous news, um, but it is a small milestone for the channel. And this is the 20th episode of Help for the Guildless, and it's going to be the season finale of Season 1. And I wanted to end Season 1 on a high note, and I was thinking about a good topic for what it should be. And it dawned on me that when I started recording this, it was actually August 2nd, 2015. What does that mean exactly? Well, August 2nd, 2015 is actually my birthday. So, I don't mean August 2nd, 2015 exactly, because I've been doing this a little bit longer than a, hour. It's more along the lines of I was born on August 2nd. I am now 34 years old. So, talking to a couple people, I have realized that you guys don't really know much about me. You know my stance on Magic the Gathering and my accomplishments with that. You also know my stance and my opinions on Gamergate and the guilds that are around the fandoms. And you know my stance about feminism and social justice warriors in regards to geek culture. But you don't know much about me. So what I decided to do is I decided to set up an Ask Me Anything. Nothing was off topic, and it garnered me a couple questions that I wasn't expecting, but I did get a couple that I was, and that's what this episode is going to be about. You getting to know a little bit about me through some of the questions that subscribers and people that follow the Facebook page have asked. So before I get into it, I want to just get the main question out of the way, which was one of them was, is Cole Spire my real name? No, of course not. Cole Spire is actually a character that I created a long time ago in a role-playing game, and I use it as a moniker to allow myself certain anonymity. Why do I enjoy this anonymity is because I do talk about controversial subjects, and I don't want to submit and subject my family and friends to any problems that could come about from it. So I use Cole Spire, and you guys can trash me on Facebook, or you can trash me on the channel, and everything's hunky-dory. I leave the comments wide open for people to post whatever they want, whether it be hate, praise, disagreements, arguments, whatever. So, like I said, this is the 20th episode, and I've been doing this for a while. I'm gonna just get right into it. I'm gonna try and keep the questions and answers within 5-minute intervals. It's going to be hard to do because some of them are kind of in-depth questions. So I will do my best to keep this as short as possible. So we're going to start off with the first question. The question comes from a WC, and it's, if you could live in any universe with any skill or magic, what would it be and what would you do? And it took a little bit to get an answer for this, but honestly, I would love to live in the world of Harry Potter. There's a whimsical feel to the use of magic. Yeah, there are bad things that happen and people die, but think about the world of Hogwarts. The school never specifies if the witches or wizards will be good or bad, but teaches everyone just the same. Your skill is determined by your ability to learn and push the boundaries of what it is to be said witch or wizard. There's something really great about that type of world. that type of universe. They live normal lives, but have magical assistance. They can choose to live in the Muggle world, or they can choose to live in the magical one. It's the individual's choice. It's a lot like our world, only better. I mean, I know I would have been in the Slytherin house because every single test I have ever taken that places you in a house has placed me in Slytherin, except for one, which placed me in Ravenclaw. But that doesn't mean I would be exactly like Draco or Goyle, and how they were portrayed for Slytherin. The house favored cunning and a thirst for knowledge and power. And I love learning new things. I absolutely adore learning new things. I wish it is something that keeps me going in my job, keeps me going in everyday life. As for what I do, well, I'd probably want to be a teacher at the school, or an Aurora like Harry. Both jobs seem lucrative and satisfying. Teaching new minds as professor for Defense Against the Dark Arts, or a Dark Wizard Hunter, I'd be good with either of those. I mean, think about it. As a professor, you're teaching young minds and seeing them blossom into new witches and wizards, and how well they can learn, how well you can teach them. At the same time, as an Aurora, you're protecting people you care about and protecting the world in general from these evil witches and wizards. You get more of a leniency on your ability to use magic and things like that. So I mean, hands down, out of all the worlds and all of the universes, comics, video games, movies, TV, I definitely'd have to say I want to stick with the Harry Potter world. On to question number 2, and this comes from JW. Your thoughts on the career and ring work of underrated Greg Valentine. For those of you who do not know who Greg Valentine is, this is a wrestling question. Greg Valentine was a WWF superstar back in the day. It's not really a question per se, but it's a good topic. I never really saw Greg Valentine as underrated in the WWE, or F, if you want to go that far. He was always a good mid-card competitor. He was always entertaining. The matches were very technically savvy, and he was given opportunities that other stars didn't get. I can't say that he was ever underutilized. His mic skills were never the best, but that never stopped the WWE from teaming him up with amazing stars like the Honky Tonk Man, or pitting him in a rivalry against Bret Hart when Bret Hart was an up-and-coming superstar. The sad thing is, what I can say is this: I couldn't tell you anything spectacular he ever did. Teaming up with the Honky Tonk Man was one of his best gimmicks. But I mean, that might actually speak volumes for the attraction of Greg Valentine for someone like myself and the fans of the WWF at the time. You have to look at what was happening when he was in the middle of his career. You had an up-and-coming HBK being flashy and over the top and being the sexy boy with Sherry, and you know, he was very much learning to be an in-ring performer, as well as capturing the focus of the fans. And he wasn't the epitome of cool like LOD, the Legion of Doom. Guys that came out to hardcore rock music with spiked shoulder pads, and they had a look about them that you knew when they got in the ring some shit was going to happen. Greg Valentine would come in and he would go. And I mean, that was kind of it. Now, I'm pretty sure there are Greg Valentine fans out there, and he is a legend in the business because he's performed with some of the greats. But I can't tell you for the life of me what matches he actually did really good with, what belts he held. I can't say I was ever really a fan of his, but at the time when he was around, I was enamored with, and still am, The Undertaker. Which brings me to my next question that was brought to me again by JW. He's a wrestling fan. And that is the top 5 Undertaker matches. Well, he asked me for a top 10, but I have to kind of go top 5 because they need some explaining. So I'm gonna go 5 to 1. 5 being 5 being the worst of the 5, and 1 being the best of the 5. And some of these you guys are probably going to be able to guess if you're a wrestling fan. But number 5, right off the bat, is Survivor Series 1992, Undertaker vs. Kamala. The rivalry was amazing. I remember watching on the weekends how the storylines played out. And it really solidified Undertaker and Paul Bearer as the master of the mind games. The promos that were cut of the Undertaker building the casket and sanding the wood and painting the stars and the moon that Kamala had on his chest and stomach. This was the first ever casket match. And it was a big deal. And like I said, the build-up for this match was great. And you could feel the emotion, and being a young fan, I was more worried that The Undertaker would lose. I was completely into the story, completely into the character. I was young, but that's okay. Like I said, it was the first ever casket match, and Undertaker won. So I was supremely happy with Survivor Series 1992 just on that fact. I'd like to point out the Survivor Series is one of my favorite pay-per-views, which they don't really focus on the Survivor Series part. It's now become just one of the main 4. My favorite is the Royal Rumble. Number 4, SummerSlam 1996, Undertaker vs. Mankind. There's a lot of Undertaker vs. Mankind rivalry matches, but this one was special. It was the first ever Boiler Room Brawl. And again, if you get down to it, the build-up for this rivalry and this match is what sold this match and is why it's one of my top 5. It's got a feel to it. Mankind cutting a couple promos at the pay-per-view, Undertaker's music not even playing, and him just going looking for Mankind in the Boiler Room, and then shit got real, and they started throwing each other around. This was not commonplace at the time with the WWE. This was not full-on Attitude Era yet. So you're dealing with things that people aren't used to seeing. Like someone getting hit with a wooden pallet, being slammed on the ground, being thrown around and hitting metal. The match was great. Unfortunately, Undertaker lost, and I wasn't happy about that, but I knew he'd get his revenge, and the match itself was great, and it sticks out in my mind as one of his better ones. Now, this next one goes... I've already talked about the 90s, but now I'm talking about 1990, Survivor Series 1990. The $1 Million Team, which was Ted DiBiase, an unknown competitor, Greg Valentine and the Honky Tonk Man, versus the New Foundation, Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Coco Beware, and Dusty Rhodes. The unknown competitor was bought and purchased by Ted DiBiase. And when he debuted, the Roddy Piper was doing commentary, and The Undertaker came out. And just the reaction that you got from Roddy Piper to The Undertaker solidified this character as someone who was going to do things in the WWF. And then you have Gorilla Monsoon, who screws up and names The Undertaker's finishing move before anybody is supposed to know what it's called, by calling it a tombstone. And Roddy Piper goes, "A what?" And Gorilla Monsoon goes, "Well, it looks like a tombstone." And thus it was the Tombstone Piledriver. He defeated Koko B. Ware in seconds. Now, unfortunately, the $1 Million Team lost, but at that point in time, it wasn't about the team. It was about this character that showed up and took people's breath away. Undertaker's debut match is one of the greatest matches The Undertaker's ever had. Now, number 2. Holy crap. Number 2 in my top 5 is WrestleMania 28, Undertaker vs. Triple H in Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels as the special referee. This match was brutal, bloody, and amazing. The match was just old school, beat the living crap out of each other wrestling. And it's something that we needed at the time to really let people understand that these people are real. They feel pain. They are friends in the backstage area. This was the beginning of the loss of kayfabe. And Undertaker helping Triple H out of the ring, and Shawn Michaels and them standing at the entrance with everybody cheering. The match was great, and I, for one, am happy that I was able to see it. And then we get to my number 1, which is a lot of number 1 fans, Undertaker fans number 1, a lot of Mick Foley fans number 1. It's King of the Ring, 1998, Undertaker vs. Mankind, Hell in a Cell. That's all I have to say. If you're a wrestling fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Mankind, aka Mick Foley, decides that he's going to climb to the top of the cell. The cell is 20 feet high, 25 I guess you could say. And it's chain link fence, and it's a cube, it's a cage, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a cell. So Undertaker and Mankind are fighting on top of the cell. They keep staggering towards the end, towards one of the edges. And you're not thinking, oh my god, they're going to do something. You know, they would never do this. They would never let one of them fall off the cage. And then Undertaker throws Mankind off the top of the cage onto a fucking table. I don't care if you think wrestling is fake. I don't care if you think the tables are pre-broken. I don't care if you think that their punches don't do anything. When you fall 25 feet off the top of a cage onto a table, it hurts a lot. There is not a professional player in any sport that you watch that could take a hit like that and continue for another 20 minutes or so. They'd be carted off the field or escorted off the rink or whatever. So not only does Mick Foley fall from the top of the cell onto a table, they escort him out by stretcher. I know it's for show, I don't care. Mick Foley, as Mankind, gets up and climbs back to the top of the cell, which causes The Undertaker to get back to the top of the cell. Now, one of Undertaker's signature moves is a choke slam. And basically, it is exactly what it sounds like. He takes his big ass hand, wraps it around your throat, picks you up, and drops you on your head. Undertaker grabs Mankind in a chokeslam, lifts him up on top of the cell again, and plants his ass in the middle of one of the links. It breaks. The cage part of it breaks. The chain link fence falls. He falls from the top of the cell onto the mat. And again, if you're going to argue that it's nothing but a bunch of padding on top of a spring, you're wrong. It's about a ½ inch of foam padding on top of metal and wood. Fall on your couch, yes, that's fine. Fall on your floor, you're going to hurt yourself. Now jump from 20 feet and land on your upper shoulders and part of your neck. That's what he did. And he kept going. They showed him. He bit a hole the size of a quarter in his lip. Broke his tooth to the point where it went up into his sinus cavity and out his nose. Mankind, aka Mick Foley, is a god in wrestling. And to see this match the first time at a pay-per-view was nothing but glorious. And as a fan, you watched this match and it outshone the main event. And that says something. I honestly could go on about The Undertaker forever, but I'm not going to. I may do that at another time on another podcast, and we can talk about fan favorites and our favorites, and I can bring Brockus back on. But we'll move on to the next question. This one is from Cody. And he asks, when did you have your first geek out and what was it over? Now, I don't know what he means by geek out. I have geek outs with my friends when they come over and we talk about comics and we argue about things that happen in movies and whatever. What I'm assuming this geek out is the first time that I had a geek experience that caused me to go nuts. My first geek out would have to be at my very first convention. I haven't been to many, but I remember this one. I got the opportunity to work at a horror convention for Phantasmagoria. I think that's what it was called. I can't remember. It was a magazine. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on TV, and it was not only gaining popularity, but gaining momentum, and to the point where they were just about to split it into the two shows, Angel and Buffy. And there were going to be a couple of really cool things going on at this convention. Tony Todd was there. I got to meet him. He was awesome. Really nice guy. For those of you who don't know, he was Candyman. Linda Blair was there. She's a bitch. I tried talking to her. She wouldn't even look at me if I wasn't paying $50 for her signed autograph. They also had, I can't remember his name, and I'm sorry, the guy who played the Djinn in The Wishmaster was there. He was really nice, and his voice really is that deep. They were also going to show the first 10, this is how long ago it was, the first 10 minutes of House on Haunted Hill as a debut. There was a costume contest where a dude came in a homemade Predator costume that looked like they could have used it for the movie. He said it was hot as hell, but the costume looked amazing. But what I was looking forward to, and what my brother was looking forward to, my mom was looking forward to, and my friends that were there were looking forward to, was the guest speaker, Nicholas Brendan, aka Xander, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He got up on stage. He was very nice. He gave a little speech, said a little bit about himself, and then asked if there were any questions. And the hall was silent. A sea of staring faces staring back at him. my brother and I were fans. My girlfriend at the time was a fan as well, so we started raising our hands. Um, we had been watching the show since the beginning. Needless to say, we got to ask him a ton of questions about upcoming episodes, crossovers, about his character, and about things only kids who watched the show cared about. The geek out moment came after he got off stage. We were working part of it, and that was part of our pay as kids. We got to go be there for the guest speaker. He came up to us, and he thanked us for asking so many questions because the room was so cold and silent. He said that we made his day. He gave us his autograph pictures, and we got to hang out with him for a little bit. And he is one of the nicest actors I have ever met. And I will never, ever forget it. The rest of that convention was a blur, okay? Meeting Tony Todd, meeting the guy who played the Djinn in Wishmaster, all that stuff is a blur. I don't even really remember the 10 minutes of House on Haunted Hill. I remember going to see it when it came out, but that's it. What I remember most is the 10 or so minutes that we got to hang out with Xander. Alright? It affected me so much that my son is named after his character. It was just a great experience. So I would say that would be my very first geek out moment, and where I really started to understand that it was okay to like these things. It was okay to be into these kind of fandoms. This next question is just a simple one. And the question is, who's your favorite Marvel villain? I'm glad it was Marvel, not DC, because there's not many DC villains that I know aside from Batman's Rogues Gallery and some of Superman's stuff, because I am a Marvel fanboy. So my favorite Marvel villain is an easy one to answer. It's always been Venom. From the first moment I read about him to the first time I saw him on the Spider-Man animated series and realized what he actually was. Not even the symbiote. I'm talking about him being anti-Superman. Or Spider-Man. Forgive me. The story behind him was awesome. You know, discovering the symbiote on the rocket that JJ's son brought back and all that great stuff. And how he was able to use Spider-Man's abilities against him. You know, no spider sense. No spidey sense whatsoever because he was part of him at one point. And then the unlimited webbing... just the black suit itself was amazing, which is why I was really pissed about Spider-Man 3 and what they did with Venom. If they wanted to create Venom as a villain, he should have had his own movie. And I understand all the stuff that happened with the behind-the-scenes stuff about the director wanting it to be about Venom or wanting it to be about Sandman, but the production company said, no, you gotta have Venom in it because he's a fan favorite and people want him because of the black suit, and etc., etc., etc. It's just... he's a great character, and the fact that they turned him into an anti-hero is even better. You know, he's still got this insatiable thirst for vengeance, but then you have... he's kind of a good guy, too. He's helped Spider-Man, he's helped a few other heroes, but he's always been this really creepy cannibal. I mean, Venom was a cannibal. Let's be serious here. So, my favorite Marvel villain is Venom, and he always will be. I do love the other villains, but I have to say he's my favorite. The next question, which I was expecting the villain one, and I was expecting this next question. What is your favorite video game of all time? Console, not arcade. This is a loaded question. The problem is, I really don't have a single favorite game. It's kind of like movies. Everybody goes, what's your favorite movie? I don't have a favorite movie. I have different genres that I have favorite movies in that I can sit down and watch every single time. It's that way with video games as well. I have a favorite for each console that I've ever owned. And so I can do that list easier than anything than just picking one. So these are from consoles that I have owned, and I apologize if I don't pick yours. So I'll start from the beginning. The NES, Super Dodgeball. If I'm ever in a bad mood, or if I'm feeling upset or grumpy, I can slip this game in and have a good laugh while I play through story mode, and it quotes on the story. It maybe take an hour and a half, but by the end of it, I'm all smiles. The game was hilarious. I loved it. Simple, easy to play, and just makes you laugh. SNES, Super Nintendo. That's easy. It's not Super Mario World. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time. This classic beat 'em up, and it's exactly what it is. Not only starred the turtles, but each turtle had their own personality. They had their own special moves. You could do things in this game that you couldn't do on other games, like throw the Foot Clan towards the screen. The game was amazing. And it was even better if you could play with a friend. Even better if you bought the multi-adapter and you were able to play all 4 turtles on the screen at the same time. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it was so good, in fact, that they did an HD remake a couple of years ago, and it sold gangbusters. Sticking with Nintendo 64. I'm going to go with a classic. Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Nothing needs to be said about this game. The game is one of the best Zelda games out there. Now, I know a lot of people go with Majora's Mask. I personally did not like Majora's Mask, but that does not say that it's a bad game. I just liked Ocarina of Time better. I didn't have many Nintendo 64 games, but I did make sure to pick that one up. Then we go to the GameCube. Mario Kart Double Dash. Mario Kart Double Dash all day, every day. I was able to beat, I would say, 95% of the programmer ghosts. I got so good at this game. It's really sickening. Moving on. PlayStation 1. Final Fantasy VII. I know. It's a lot of people's favorites. People lost their minds when they found out there was going to be a remake coming out. And I do look at it a lot through nostalgia goggles. But it was the very first role-playing game I ever played, and it is still one of my favorites. I love the story, I love the characters. Yes, I understand Cloud is a little bitch, but the game is what brought me into that genre and me to be able to like that genre of game. Now, PlayStation 2 is a no-brainer for me. Disgaea, Hour of Darkness. I know there's a lot of people who don't know what Disgaea is. I love this game so much that I actually devoted an entire podcast to it about a few months back. This game I have put over 1,000 hours into. I'd like to get into more detail about it, but this is an Ask Me Anything, not a review. So please listen to the podcast. It explains it a lot better. And believe me, if you give it a shot, it will be just as fun for you. Lastly, the newest console I have is a PS3. I don't have any of the Xboxes. I don't have a PS4 yet. I plan on getting one soon. On the PS3, if we're going by the amount of time played or completionist examples, I'd have to say my favorite PS3 game is a tie between Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age Inquisition. Both of them are Dragon Age games. Both of them play a little bit differently, though. The games are enthralling and enough to pull me into the game itself and spend more time on them than anything else. Dragon Age Origins, I did 5 playthroughs before I could not play it anymore because the story was just like, I'm good at, yes, I want to get to this so I can do this. Dragon Age Inquisition is the same thing. I'm on my third playthrough, and the game, I still want to just explore everything about this game to try and find all of its secrets. The story is great. I want all of this. I want it to keep going. So much so that I want to see what they're going to do for the next one. The story and the gameplay for both of them, which are both different types of gameplay, made me want to keep playing. And there are not a lot of games that I have that make me do that. And there's not. I mean, you play through the story, and there's not much else, and you put the game aside, and you never play it again. Dragon Age makes me want to pick it up a lot. So those are my favorites for each system that I've ever owned. I have owned Game Boys and things like that, but I don't want to get into those. The next question is a little bit more thought-inducive, and it's coming from someone who is a guest on the show on episode 6, and that's our good friend House. He asked, your thoughts on Netflix releasing a new Marvel show every 6 months? Who do you want to see, and perhaps some fan casting? Now, what this is talking about, of course, is Daredevil, and then they're going to be having a couple new ones. I honestly think it's a great idea. Only if they can maintain the quality that they produce, like Daredevil. I'm happy to see Power Man coming to the small screen. I don't know anything about Power Man, and I would love to know more about him, and I want to see it. I'm even more excited that Punisher is coming to the Daredevil Season 2. If they make a Punisher series, please, for the love of God, my casting choice for that would be Thomas Jane. Get him back. I think he honestly did a great job as Frank Castle, and he needs to be him again. Who would I like to see more of? Well, I mean, Marvel has a huge thing to choose from. They have a huge roster, and I'd love to see them do Blade again. I know that people are shopping around the idea of remaking Blade or re-releasing Blade and talking to Wesley Snipes about reprising his role. Think about it this way: if they did it as a TV show, oh my God, it would be amazing. If they did the same way that they did Daredevil, except I'm not saying exactly, but I'm talking about that type of detail and the growing that Daredevil went through the series. If they do it that way, they could make up for the ungodly debacle of the TV show that we got on Spike or TNT or whatever. I can't even remember. But, I mean, does it only have to be heroes? I mean, what I think would be awesome would be a heist series. Think about Leverage or White Collar. They're very popular. But you do it with villains, like the Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew would be amazing. Now, they're not always going to succeed because they are villains, but you get to learn about these characters and maybe have them become part of a fandom that not many people know about. So they could even do like a spotlight on a villain once, a one-off, whatever, like Doc Ock or Doctor Doom, Juggernaut. There are a ton of characters to choose from, and if they can keep up with the schedule and the demand, I say more power to them. But if you screw up and you start giving us camp, you're gonna see people turn on you pretty quickly. Another question, and this one comes from Rob. When comparing traditional Superman and Gods and Monsters Superman, which one do you like more? Now, this one is going to piss a lot of people off. Or they may not. Gods and Monsters is a animated movie that came out that was done by the same people who did the Batman animated series and Superman animated series. And it takes a different look at Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Where Batman is actually Man-Bat and a vampire. And Wonder Woman isn't Diana, it's one of the new gods that was married to Ares or something like that, or I can't remember. But she's from Apocalypse. And I don't mean Apocalypse as in Marvel Apocalypse, I mean Apocalypse as in Darkseid. And Superman is actually fathered by Normal Supes' mom and General Zod. The difference is, there's definitely a difference. Is it a bad difference? Not necessarily, but out of the two, I have to go with original Superman, traditional Superman, and there's a reason why. You need Boy Scout Superman. You need this golden boy. You need the idyllic hero that is Superman. Reason why is because who are the two main heroes? You're talking Batman and Superman. They're two heroes of the same coin, two sides. If you don't have the pinnacle of right and just to look up to, you have Batman, where the end justifies the means. With Superman, the end never justifies the means. Okay? The perfect example is you take the Superman from the animated series and what they did with Doomsday. Okay? Superman fought Doomsday, and he held back and held back and held back until Metropolis was pretty much evacuated. And then he let Doomsday have it. Doomsday was defeated. Now you take the God and Monsters version of that, who wasn't coddled by a good father, a good family, and you actually get Man of Steel. It's a huge jump for people who have seen Gods and Monsters and to Man of Steel, but it's the same generalization. Man of Steel, Superman, you watched him grow up and just be treated like horrible by humans. They were a fucking douchebag to him, man. His dad you never really saw him instill that you need to protect humanity, you need to be the good person, you need to be this, you need to be that traditional Superman got. So, in the final battle in Man of Steel with Zod, he didn't care about the people that were in Metropolis, because he didn't care about humanity. He was not the golden boy. He was not the perfect Boy Scout of a hero that we need. And what did people do? They hated it. So, I mean, you have to have that golden boy Superman, or else you devolve into Gods and Monsters, which the Gods and Monsters Superman was a great character. I actually got Gods and Monsters for my birthday today. So it's a great character, but it's not what we're used to. So much so that he was completely void of any caring except about himself. And we can't have that in our Superman. So it's, like I said, you gotta have the good with the bad. Batman is allowed to be Batman because traditional Superman is who he is. He's the pinnacle of good. Next question. I hope I explained that well. Next question. What is the most original game you have ever played? One that challenged conventions well, but was underrated for whatever reason. Now, there's no limitation to this one, like the question before about the console. This one is an underrated game. There are a ton of underrated games, but each underrated game that gets publicity stops being an underrated game, like Braid or Bastion or things like that. So I really had to think about this one, and it brought me back to a long time ago where arcades were still a big deal. And the game that I remember that was really, really unconventional, but at the same time original and but underrated, was Time Traveler. It's a simple name. It was an arcade game back in the day that used holographic 3D technology to spin the story. You were able to travel to 3 different time periods and have an adventure. The gameplay was similar to Dragon's Lair, and you had 3 lives. You had the momentary thing to move, you saw the part of the flash, you move and you do something. But I remember pumping a ton of quarters into this game as a kid. It challenged what a quote-unquote conventional game really was. It was an experience more than a game. And it had a hefty difficulty to it as well. Dragon's Lair and Space Ace were both known for being really hard games. Time Traveler was right up there with that difficulty. I consider it underrated because of how few people knew or know about the game and that it even existed. It was fun. It had an interesting story. It was challenging. And everything an arcade game should be. I was told that this game actually has a DVD version that you can buy. I don't know where, but your DVD remote becomes the controller of the game. I'd love to pick it up because I personally have never seen the end of this game. But that would have to be the most original game I ever played because there was no other games that came out like that I saw. We did have the virtual reality games that came out, but this one was not virtual reality. It was holographic, and we used holographic technology way back when, and did a really good job with it too. It was live action, but it was there, and it was fun. Now, this last question comes from Justin Credible. Not if it's his real name, I think that's awesome. What in your life, if you had to choose one, is your one true guilty pleasure? All right. For those of you who know me, you know what my answer is. For those of you who are listening who don't know who I am, really, this is my guilty pleasure, and it will continue to be my guilty pleasure forever. And it started with one movie, but it wasn't a bad movie. My guilty pleasure is bad shark movies. Bad shark movies. I love them. I can't stop watching them. This all started with Jaws. And Jaws was an amazing movie. Jaws 2 was okay. Jaws 3 was horrible, and Jaws 3 Revenge, we forget that it actually exists. But bad shark movies. I have seen them all. As far as I know, every single time I see a new one, I have to watch it. I have to. My girlfriend hates it. Alright? Sharknado. As soon as I heard about Sharknado, I had to see it. I didn't care how bad it was. I had to see it. And then Sharknado 2, had to watch it. Sharktopus, love it. I have never laughed so hard at certain scenes in Sharktopus and how ridiculous the premise of that movie is. Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark, Mega Shark versus Croczilla or whatever. I've seen them all. The only one I have not seen yet is an older movie that came out after Sharknado, which is Ghost Shark. I have been looking for it. I can't find it. I want to watch it, and I don't want to look it up on sci-fi, whatever. I don't want to see it on that. I want to see Ghost Shark. I have to. I have seen all the bad ones. I own some of the bad ones. Shark Night 3D. I own. I own Deep Blue Sea. I own Jaws. I own Jaws 2. The whole thing is something that is my guilty pleasure. I can sit down, watch these movies, and just laugh at how ridiculous they are. And I wish it was something cooler than bad shark movies as my guilty pleasure, but it's not. they're just downright dirty fun. I mean, going so far as to spawn things like Piranha and Piranha 2 and Piranha 3 and Piranha Remake and Piranha Double D and soon to come out Triple D. Movies are what they are. But that is all the time I have for you guys in these questions. I hope you have learned something a little bit about me. If not, please send me some more questions and I'll gladly answer them. Like I said, no question is off limits. If you liked this, please hit the like button down there. Subscribe, share with your friends. You can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/helptheguildless, and you can also find me on Twitter at Colespire. And I look forward to Season 2 and everything else that we can talk about. So thank you again for listening, and have a good night, everybody.